Yeah, I just want to talk about this interaction I had with a call on Free Talk Live. I keep getting into an argument with the host, Bonnie, here. And I keep trying to make a case for accelerationism and the fact that war and the drug war are good tools in order to accelerate the demise of the government, because I feel that it's one of the greatest weaknesses of the government. The fact that unprofitable government policies are both the problem and its own cure. So let me play this clip here.
It sure sounds like it.
Well, it really was.
Yeah.
But we do have a caller on the line. I think it's Skeeter. Caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
And right away, I'm on mute.
Maybe it's not Skeeter. Caller, you're on Free Talk Live. Going once. Oh, sorry, I had him muted. My bad. I had you muted. I didn't realize it till now.
You guys mentioned communism, and you know why communism is so generally hated to this day, and large, hard communist experience are going extinct. It's because they were allowed to fail, and the horrible consequences that followed are embedded in our memories. And the best tools to allow this failure are unprofitable government policy and wars, both conventional wars and drug wars. And
well, whoever crushes the other with force.
So yeah, I'm just making a case that wars are a good tool to accelerate the government. I mean, it's fiscal collapse because wars are negative sum games, right? You might be able to rearrange it so that the victor may eke out a profit somehow, may eke out a large profit somehow. But because war is an expensive strategy, that is unlikely the case, even with war that conquers other resources. You can look at the last wars fought in the U.S., all of which are, since all the land is like officially owned and all the resources on it are officially owned, and all the governments collude to make peace. There's nothing to conquer anymore, basically. And even when you conquer, you can fail. I mean, you have to first win, and then profitably starts to become a possibility. And even then, it's still a low one. But here, I'm concerned with the fiscal collapse of government, because government is a corporate entity, right? Which is ultimately manifest in its balance sheet, and that's where its weaknesses is, and that's how accelerationism is a good strategy to get to, my optimal utopia, which is a pure market system that doesn't hold non-aggression as a principle. But I'll continue with the clip.
Whoever crushes the other with force is going to be the one that, quote, fails, not because their economic system necessarily failed. It's not like that just happened naturally and no one went over there and murdered people, and now we're like, see, that clearly didn't work. No, the people who win in a war get to write the history, and that's how it worked.
Yeah, see, so I mean, this is just broken window fallacy all over. Broken window fallacy has to do with like opportunity costs, and also not being able to see past the immediate benefits of something like war or something destructive. In this case, just because the victor like might be able to like, because all politicians and government employees and the military industrial complex, they're just special interest groups. They're not the government themselves, even though they act on behalf of the government. Just like a CEO is not, like, if he were to benefit from selling shares, he is not the corporation. The corporation is the balance sheet. And when you look at it from this way, you can kind of see what I'm talking about, that everything else, it's analogous to the broken window fallacy, because the window glazier or the window repair complex, all of these people, the employees of the government, they're just special interests. The president, all of them acting on behalf of the government, the voting public, they're all just special interests. And they're analogous to the window glazier or the window repairer who you pay to fix the broken window. And the analogy continues because the people in this case become the government. or the corporate entity of the government, which is their balance sheet. Or so the people become, in the analogy of the broken window fallacy, become the government corporate balance sheet. That is the people. And the broken window manifests itself or is analogous to the debt incurred. So the loss that happens in society, which is the broken window in the broken window fallacy analogy, that broken window is the increase in the debt, which is a loss to society, because obviously that project didn't the benefits to that balance sheet didn't warrant whatever that project was. In this case, we're talking about war. In the standard broken window fallacy, it's the breaking of a window.
And I'm not saying communism isn't
matter,
bad
like,
for anybody who doesn't understand that. I'm just saying
it does. That's again, I know you disagree with this, but it's a form of broken window fallacy. They don't come out better in the end.
Who's
Both
they?
parties come out worse in the end. What's that?
Who's they? Those that are in the
it's
war?
not. He just like says
The
things. He
two
never knows what
parties in
he's
the
talking
war.
about. So he's saying it's a broken window fallacy that I said that the winner of a war gets to write history, because he doesn't understand. Like, he just reads things and then does not actually comprehend it and just repeats him, or like repeats stuff.
Well,
So
I think that's accurate. That's what Hayek said in Economics in
yeah.
One Lesson, is that essentially war costs both sides.
it's not
and
Hayek, and
isn't
it's not Hayek. And also, I understand what the broken window fallacy is, but he's using it against something that I said they get to write the history. I didn't say that they just.
It doesn't matter if like what the benefits are to special interest groups. You can write history. You can use government policy to build a fence around your house. All that is, again, the same thing as when you pay the window maker to fix the broken window, right? That's the benefit. That's the illusion of profit here, or gain to a society. This is just an illusion. It is not worth the cost. You know how much the average war probably costs, like trillions of dollars, at least here in the Western United States, right? Just to rewrite history for what? I mean, there's hardly any economic gain that comes out of rewriting history. It gets exposed when there's a fiscal collapse. All of that gets rewritten again when there's fiscal collapse. The fraud becomes apparent, right? This is all like a Ponzi scheme debt economy. So like everyone might think, oh yeah, let's go to war, and what they don't internalize is this government debt, because they're numb to it, because we're living with supreme credit, risk-free credit, as they call it in the financial world, right? This is a bubble. This is the Western bubble created by the advent of the nuclear bomb. But I'll get into that in maybe some other video.
Gain more money, but ultimately the people don't gain more money. The economy doesn't get better, but the government gets more.
See, you have to look at the people as the government balance sheet in this case, because the people are insulated from the damage of war, which is debt, because they don't look at how feasible it is to pay back that debt incurred. They don't even probably know how much was spent, right? You got to look that up. Most libertarians or anti-war people maybe know those figures, but the average voter probably doesn't even care, because that's what democracy does. It desensitizes us to profit. It desensitizes us to both the costs of a project and the benefits to a project, because it's a tragedy of the commons scenario where people are spending other people's money for other people's benefit. And that desensitizes us and perverts our incentives when we vote. And that's why I don't like democracy. But again, I say, since that is the weakness of a democratic system, that it's not a profit-seeking entity, or it doesn't have profit-seeking incentives. It is its own cure. It throws out a signal to market actors to become a parasite on this non-profit entity. And you can see that when you examine what happens on the balance sheet of this corporate entity with respect to executing government policy.
Power, and that's what I always say to him, and he just repeats, like, we have the same conversations over and over because he doesn't understand what I'm saying. He only has his like thoughts he thinks, and he is very stupid, and then he won't like change what he's thinking, and he assumes what I'm saying without listening to me at all.
She should take her own advice. It's not me who has control of the mute or hang up button. And I don't think she's comprehending what I say, because she can't get over like her basic understanding of the broken window fallacy. She can't take the fact that it's one level of complexity higher because of debt. It's debt that turns this broken window fallacy analogy. It turns it into another complex animal, but it's the same thing. Again, debt is just the broken window, the loss incurred to society. But in this case, it's not the people, it's the government, right? And their balance sheet. And it's evident in their balance sheet. And the most important thing is that the people, the taxpayer, isn't necessarily on the hook for the debt on the liabilities on this balance sheet, right? They don't have to pay it back, right? They can default or they can inflate it away. And in this case, my focus of attack and through peaceful means, through the democratic system, by voting for war, right? I advocate them to cannibalize themselves, right? It's the debt holders that suffer when this debt isn't paid back in real terms, right? So they can either default, in this case, the bondholders, which are the treasury holders of the United States government. Those people I consider the real government, right? It's not the voters, it's not the politicians, it's not the special interests that benefit from the policies at the expense of the government balance sheet. It's the shareholders, the people who invest their savings in the currency, and the people who invest their savings in the debt to enable these foolish government policies. Those are the people I want to suffer. And when fiscal collapse happens, they suffer proportionally, and that is just.
Like, I never said anything that would make it a broken window fallacy. That's talking about economics.
I
don't know who it
hear
is.
that you feel unheard, Bonnie.
It sure sounds like it.
Is
Well-
Skeeter gone? Okay.
I just muted him. Do you want to talk to him?
I don't have anything. I mean, I don't know that he ever got to a point.
His point was going to be about Argentina. What was your point about Argentina, Skeeter?
Am I muted?
No.
Hello? Okay, sorry, yeah. Oh yeah, so all the think tanks agree with me. Like every time you go into a war, the only government so government is the balance sheet, right? It's not the employees, it's not the dictator. You look at their balance sheet and what happens, right? It's rarely the case that they come out ahead in any case.
Are you talking about economically?
And look at all the breakdowns of.
So we can't have a conversation if you're not like telling us what you're talking about. Are you talking about economically?
Yes, that's all that really counts.
I don't think so.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like every benefit to anybody, in the utilitarian sense, can be translated into some type of, economic benefit. That's all that really counts. I mean, I think it's utility, right? Under my ethic. And again, under my ethic, it's utility to the perfect evolutionary being. But that's beside the fact. Let's continue.
You can. So when you look at when you chart a course of the national debt, and you see what happens after war, and you'll see that the main causes of debt is our war
and the rich people who own the IMF and work with them, they profit from countries being in debt. You realize that, right?
That's broken window fallacy.
No, it's not. No, it's not. You seriously don't know what you're talking about, and that's why I don't like talking to you. Like, how is it broken window fallacy that the people who a country gets into debt with profit? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He heard that once. He's like, I'll sound so smart if I say broken window fallacy. And he's like using it wrong. And everybody knows that the people who are in power, they gain more power by doing wars and conquering other places.
Ultimately, government derives its power from convincing the people that they're better off due to their policy. And if there's fiscal collapse that occurs, it exposes that lie, and everyone realizes this, and that power disappears, both because they cannot spend any more money because they can't borrow anymore or inflate anything away anymore, or the people just plain out revolt. And that's where she's wrong.
Is like, it doesn't make any sense to think anything else. Why would anybody do a war otherwise?
The people that profit the most off of war are the weapons manufacturers.
Again, broken window fallacy. You don't point to the military-industrial complex. That is just the window repairers, the window repair complex, or the window maker complex, right? Doesn't matter. Those, of course, you can look at those, but you forget there's debt incurred. And that is suffered on the government balance sheet, not necessarily the taxpayer, but the government balance sheet. And until that's paid back, it's going to be borne by the shareholders of the government corporation.
Yeah.
Military-industrial complex. And I would say that's true, Bonnie. I would also say that war is the health of the state.
And see, this is why I hate libertarians, right? They read some Schmedley Butler book or something. This is not true. War is the demise of the state. It's like foolish spending on a credit card. It's like, so when you accumulate debt on a credit card for frivolous reasons that don't warrant that debt, that don't pay itself off, that don't pay for the interest it incurs, that is not healthy for an individual, and it is not healthy for the government corporate entity in this case. And that's what they don't get, right? It's because they read these stupid they're nice poetic sayings, but they're not from economists. They're from demagogues, really.
That's always my point with him.
Entirely clear what Skeeter was trying to get to, but there you go.
Here's one thing that you're missing because he called in about yesterday. He wants me to believe that it's, quote, dangerous for Javier Milei to try to heal his country. He says that even though he is like
dangerous to whom?
ANCAP, to the people, he's saying that the people need to learn their lesson, and if they can't learn their lesson, then that it's dangerous.
Well, they learned the lesson. They elected Javier Milei.
No, they haven't learned their lesson. They haven't pinpointed the true problem, and that's democracy itself. They're still trying to use, the people of Argentina are still trying to use the democratic system to fix the problems that they created. And it's the perverted incentives. When you deviate away from the profit incentive, it becomes perverted. And that's where my ethic of evolutionary capitalism comes in. It focuses on the principle of profitability, in particular, evolutionary profitability. That's the true profitability that evolution has intended us to detect with all our senses, with all our logic, with all our perceptions, with all our emotions, all pleasures, all pains, everything. All that hedonic calculus, all our logical calculus is meant to detect its goal.
That's exactly what I said. He's just so stupid. I'm like,
and so these economies, these debt pyramid systems are Ponzi schemes, right? You don't want to get in front of it, put someone that put a figurehead of your ethic in front of it, trying to fix it, because there's no guarantee will work, right? She may think she's empathetic, trying to help these people. There's no guarantee his policies will work. So, and if it doesn't work while he's in seat, then he becomes the scapegoat for democracy. Will find the scapegoat with Milei if he fails, and if it succeeds, worse, if he manages to transfer the responsibility of this debt from the shareholders to the taxpayers, that's what fixing the system will do. When you try to make it the government solvent again, you alleviate some of the responsibility from the debt holders, which are the people holding the currency and the debt of the nation, to the taxpayers. That is not just. And the worst thing of it all is that they don't learn from their mistake. If you do this, you smooth out the damage. They don't realize that it was ultimately democracy that was the problem, and they still continue with the system, and they don't look for a better system to replace it with. It's going to have to be first the markets, or it may take a few iterations of experimenting with different systems, but it'll always converge to my market system. And this market system does not hold the non-aggression principle as its main focus as the ultimate cause. It's evolutionary profit.
Does every single person in a country need to die in order for you to say, oh, now that cycle is over, now they're allowed to move on? Like, he's just an idiot. He's seriously so freaking sheltered in his parents' basement. It's disgusting.
Do they have basements in California? I don't even know.
I'm sure they do. Yeah.
Hadn't really thought about that. I don't know.
Most houses don't, but but anyways, again, the balance sheet of the government is analogous to the people. The damage incurred instead of a broken window is the increase of debt that can't be repaid. And the window glazier, or the window repair complex, is the military industrial complex and the special interest groups, including the government employees themselves. They're just special interest groups. Even though they can pay themselves out of the coffers of the corporate entity suffers. And this is why accelerationism, I think, is an evolutionary strategy in accordance with my ethic of evolutionary capitalism.